According to Gallup, people who say they are ideologically moderate far outnumber the people on the extremes. For instance, just 10% of Americans say they are very conservative, and only 9% say they are very liberal. In contrast, 34% of Americans identify as moderate. But a different story in Congress, where the extremists seem to dominate. For example, there's Georgia's Marjorie Taylor Greene, a conspiracy theorist who's probably one of the most controversial members of Congress. There's Arizona's Paul Gosar, who posted a violent anime about murdering one of his colleagues and spoke at a white nationalist conference with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And then there's Louisiana's Clay Higgins, who posted racist lies about Haitian immigrants. We deserve better than this. So I'm going to tell you about one idea that could help get the extremists out of Congress and more moderate members in. But first, how do so many extremists get to Congress in the first place? Well, one big answer is gerrymandering. Every 10 years after the national census, Congress reallocates the 435 seats in the House. States that have grown in population might gain some seats, while others might lose a few. This is, in fact, the purpose of the census as laid out in Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution. After this reallocation, there's redistricting, where states draw the lines for the new districts. This process is in the hands of whichever party is in control of the state legislature, and that often means that the maps are drawn, or gerrymandered, to favor the party in power and protect incumbents. I'll give you one example of how gerrymandering contributes to extremism. When I worked on Capitol Hill, I worked for a member named Jim Cooper. He represented the 5th District of Tennessee in and around Nashville. He was a moderate member of Congress who was the policy chair for the conservative Blue Dog Coalition. He was also a member of the moderate New Democrats. But in 2022, the Republican state legislature carved up the district that he had represented for more than 30 years so that it would be impossible for a Democrat to win. Nashville was no longer all in one district, but chopped up into 3 different districts, each with a minority of Democratic voters. So today, the member representing Tennessee's 5th District is the ultra-MAGA Andy Ogles, who recently proposed a constitutional amendment to give Donald Trump a 3rd term. Gerrymandering means that it's practically impossible to dislodge someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene. She won the 2024 election with 64% of the vote in her district, even though Donald Trump barely won the state. Gerrymandering also means fewer and fewer competitive seats, which means fewer candidates who have to appeal to both sides of the aisle in order to win. In 2024, nearly 2/3 of House races were landslides won by 20 points or more, according to Fair Vote. Just 9% of races, or 37%, were closer contests that were decided by margins of 5 percentage points or less. The Cook Political Report predicts that just 9 seats in 2026 are going to be true toss-ups where Democrats and Republicans have an even shot at winning. So here's an idea for changing this: at-large seats. It's an idea that I've been talking about since as early as 2016. If members of Congress had to represent the entire state and not just a district that's been gerrymandered to be safely Democratic or safely Republican, they might have to be more moderate in order to keep their seat. Let's go back, for instance, to Georgia, where Marjorie Taylor Greene won with 64% of the vote. She won because her district looks like this, to exclude as many Democratic voters as possible. But if she had to win the state as an at-large member, she actually might not have won at all. Donald Trump, after all, won only 50.7% of the vote in Georgia in 2024. The same is true in Arizona, where members of Congress are winning their districts in margins that do not reflect the actual political reality of the state. Paul Gosar, for example, won 65% of the vote in his district, while Donald Trump won just 52% of the state overall. Swing states should have more swing seats, and the way to do that is with more at-large contests where the entire state is up for grabs. There's nothing in the Constitution that prevents at-large seats, and in fact, several states had multi-member districts or at-large seats until about 1968. And the idea of at-large districts is not unusual. In fact, they're a common feature in many city councils and on school boards. If only a handful of states had just one at-large member of Congress who was moderate, or even just less extreme, that could really make the difference between progress and gridlock. Of course, there's not a lot of incentive right now for political parties to adopt this reform, but that's where you, as citizens, come in. If Congress reflected the true ideological makeup of what America looks like, we'd probably get a lot less of this and get a lot more done. I'm Ann Kim, and thank you for watching. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe.